and move on to the next presentation. We stay somehow close to HDF5. Now it's more on the web.
Can you hear me well? Okay, great.
So where's your...
No, it's fine. I can manage. I think I put it there. No. Ah, it was closed. All right, no worries. All right. So hello everyone. My name is Loïc Huder. I'm working here at the ESRF as a software engineer. And today I'm going to talk to you about viewing HDF5 Nexus files in the web with H5 Web, which is a project that we've developed at ESRF. So first of all, why would you want an HDF5 web viewer? Well, first of all, we have a strong interest for this at ESRF because HDF5 with the Nexus metadata is now the standard format for the data acquired at ESRF. So we provide users with HDF5 data, meaning that we need to provide them the tools to read it as well. And also, especially due to the COVID, there was this rise in development of the web application that are inherently remote because they are in the web, portable because then you only need a browser to use them, and interactive because, again, in the browser, everything is running inside the browser of the user, which means that the responsiveness is quite high. So from these two statements, we saw that there was a need for software to efficiently, and a stress on the efficiency, visualize and browse HDF5 file content in the web. And also, it had to be flexible, again, a stress on this, for easy integration in multiple scenarios, which I will talk about in the later slides. So here comes H5 Web. So H5 Web, as I said, is a project that we've developed here at ESRF for 4 years now, I think. It is a React application that can view HDF5 file in the web. We developed our own visualization for 2D and 1D data using a library called Three.js, which is meant for 3D visualization in the web, if you know about it, which means that the visualization for 2D and 1D data is, as you would expect, very efficient. It's also flexible with regard to file location. So there are several scenarios that can be used to read HDF5 files with H5 Web. The first one is to have files that are located on a remote server and that are served by web server. There are several solutions out there to do this. There's HSDS that you perhaps know about, that is the solution of the HDF group that serve data from object storage. And there is our own solution for file system-based HDF5 file, which is called H5 Grove. So the role of these server is to provide data and metadata via HTTP request to H5 Web, which can run on the same computer or on a different one, where the user uses the browser to browse their data. So this is used for remote file viewing, as I just said, but this is also used for the JupyterLab extension that you can use to view HDF5 files in JupyterLab in case you use JupyterLab. But what I want to talk more about today is this other scenario, which is where the HDF5 file is actually loaded inside the browser and is read by a project called H5Wasm, which is HDF5 in WebAssembly, that is developed by Brian Maranville from NIST. And H5 Web supports this, this API, let's say, meaning that we can read the data directly inside the browser without having to have a remote server serving the data and the metadata. And as I said, the presentation of today is mostly about this scenario. So there are two ways, let's say, software that you can use with this scenario to view HDF5 file. The first one that you perhaps know about is a service called MyHDF5. I will make a demo out of it, which is an online HDF5 file viewer that is hosted by the HDF group. Another one is a VS Code extension that we also developed that is called, without too much inspiration, VS Code HFR Web, which is to view HDF5 file inside Visual Studio Code. So if you use Visual Studio Code, you can install this VS Code extension to view the HDF5 file in your computer. Oops, sorry, wrong. Yes, and now I'm going to do a demo. So if you go on the HDF group website, then you have this little vignette here, got HDF files, curious to see what's inside, you can try this, so you click on this, and you arrive on this page, where you can, which is my HDF5 web page. So there are two ways of selecting a file. The first one is to open from an URL, which I'm not going to do. Instead, I'm going to select files that are on my computer. So I've downloaded this one, which is a Nexus file. And so this is HDF5 Web, basically. Let's not talk about the right panel right now, but first about the left panel. So you can see that this is HDF5, and I'm fortunate that Dana Robinson just showed that there are groups and datasets and stuff like that, so I don't need to explain it. So you can look at inside those groups, look at the dataset, and depending on what you've selected on the left side, then there's a visualization that appears on the right side. You can also search for an entity inside. So if I have something that is called data, this one, for example, and then I can select it, and it will be selected in the browser here. Then let's talk about this. So we have two panels inside in this part. We have the display panel, which shows the visualization, and the inspect panel. We're going to look at first the inspect panel. So the inspect panel gives you information about the metadata attached to this particular data set. So in this case, the path, the data, but more importantly, what type of data is stored inside. So in this case, this is floating 64-bit numbers, and the shape of the data set. And also some attributes that can be attached to the data set. This is particularly useful in the case of Nexus data. And then if we come back to the display, then we have this 2D visualization that was done by us with Three.js, as I just explained, that can be used to view the data. So there is a tooltip to view what is the value of the data. You can zoom, you can pan, as you would expect from all kind of visualization. You can also change the dimension that you want to see. So if I want to invert the dimension, there's this little, what we call the dimension mapper here. So I can view D0 in X and D1 in Y, or the other way around. We also have this line visualization. So in this case, I have a 1D visualization of a 2D data set, which means that I need to look at a slice of the data set. So I'm looking at only a slice of the data set, and I can select here on the left, the slice that I want to show. So this is here I'm looking at in X it's D1, and here I'm slicing through D0. So I can look at the different slice. All right, nothing. And then one thing that I didn't show for the heat map also visualization is that you can of course change the limits here. You can auto scale it with the min of the max, change the color map, invert it, use another kind of normalization, switch X and Y, all kind of stuff. And you can do the same thing with the line. So if you want to change the extent in Y, change the normalization of the two axes, and stuff like that. And you can also export the data as CSV in case, for example, you have a particular slide that you want to export, that you don't want to that you want to extract out of the HDF file. Now, if we look at this particular one here, so here this is what we call NX data group. So it is a HDF group, but it has particular metadata related to Nexus. In this case, there's an attribute called the signal, which is the data that we want to display, actually. And then there are auxiliary signals that are other data that we want to display on the top of this. And this allows us to, through the support, all right, let's not bother about that. that allows us for the support, through the support of Nexus, to visualize several curves at once, which is something that you cannot do normally with if you're viewing one data set at a time. If we look at another one, that is this other NX data one, in this case, there's a signal that you want to display, but there are also axes. So this allows you to define data sets for each axis that needs to have the right dimension, of course. So in this case, these data sets are X and Y. And if I look at the particular visualization, then I have, in fact, other values. I do not have the indices. I have other values that are actually the values that are contained in this X and Y, which I'm just going to put as linear, in these X and Y data sets. And this allows to do 2D plots with with different data on X and Y, which is something that you often want to do. For example, if you have something that changes with respect to time, and you have a data set that has the time, and then you want to see, I don't know, the intensity with respect to time and stuff like that, you can structure your HDF5 data so that you can produce this plot directly in H5 So this is all for the demo, I think. So these are just some, there was also another visualization that I forgot to show you, is a matrix visualization, which is just a way to show the numbers that are contained in the data set itself. And in this case, it's not a visualization, but it was also built with performance in mind, in a sense that we are only loading the data that is actually shown here. And also the point that I want to make here is that the data is really inside the browser here. When I picked the file from the file system, I actually loaded the HDF5 file inside the browser, and so I'm accessing all the data directly inside the browser. And there's no longer any remote connection. All right, that's all. So this is a slide that I would have shown actually 6 months ago, that actually reading HDF5 file in the web has limitation. But I'm proud to say that we worked hard, in fact, to remove this limitation. So for example, compressed data sets that are data sets that have a filter to compress the data so that they take less space. They were not able to be read in HDF with H5 WASM, but actually Brian and Axel did a great job to bring do this new project which bring HDF5 compression plugin in the browser, which means that we are able to directly decompress the data stored in HDF5 file inside the browser. So that's huge. There was also a problem due to the file size, because you imagine if you load all your HDF5 file inside the browser, then if your HDF5 file is huge, then you're going to saturate the memory of your browser. But then we have now a new provider, which unfortunately only works for local file, but this is exactly what I've shown you. You have a local file on your file system, and you want to upload it to the browser. And thanks to this new provider that does only range request, so you're only requesting what you need to see, then you're able to completely bypass this limit. So that's very nice. And then there's an external link that cannot be resolved. Well, then this, unfortunately, we cannot do much about it, because this is inherently due to the way web works with local file. As I just shown you, when you want to load a file inside the browser, you need to go explicitly through this method to load the file inside the browser. And, well, if there's an external link, then that means that you need to load another file. And, well, then you need to go through this process once again to give the browser the authorization to look at this file. So this is not very easy to solve. And for now, there's nothing we can do for now. We have thought about several things to do, but nothing very good in our opinion. So H5 Web also supports other data format. I show you the Nexus format, but these are basically just different file extension. NetCDF4, which is a subset of HDF5, Loom for large omic datasets, and recently we added support for the Julia data format, which also brought support for committed HDF5 data type in H5 Web and H5 Wasm. What I want to say by this, which is a bit obscure, is that all these different communities that come with their own data format, they also drive the development in H5 Web and H5 Wasm. So don't hesitate to tell us about your use case. We're always happy to hear about it. Yes, how much time do I have? I need to, okay, good. Anyway, I want to say that these people that come with their own data format, they usually come from MyHDF5 or from the VS Code extension. And that means that the complete integration in the web is the most successful in our opinion. The biggest roadblock were cleared, and this is, as I said, an easier access point for other communities. As I said, you can get in touch in GitHub or H5 Web. And I just have a last thank slide to my pals that are unfortunately not here for this talk. But again, that's all. Thank you, and sorry.
Okay, we do one question, and then we have to move on.
Anyway, look for me near the coffee machines. I'll be there.
Okay, a quick comment. It's very useful. So it's a shame we didn't even know that. But my question is that have you considered that can accept streaming data, so that which are currently being
Ooh, that's difficult. I mean, okay. that's already difficult with HDF5 on the disk.
Oh, quite.
So through the browser, I'm not sure. What I want to say is that we have this provider architecture that I talked about, which allows us to support different scenarios of file serving. And this provider is like, it defines an API that H5 Web accept to display the data. Which means that if you have some kind of hierarchical data format that implements this API in the way that H5 Web expects it, then you should be able to use it.
Okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
And thank Loic again.